everybody. Welcome to our bi-monthly chat with David Childers from Keeping Current Matters, where he makes us all smarter and look better with the data and the knowledge that he brings. David, welcome. How are you?
Thanks, Johnny. I'm good. It's good to be here. I always enjoy these conversations. I mean, everybody joins and asks questions. You and I get a chance to talk about what's happening out there in the market. And, my goal always is to bring some fact-based, information to these calls so that we're not relying solely on our emotions or our opinion. We can look at it and say what's going on and use that to have conversations with buyers and sellers, use that to educate, and certainly over the next half hour, that's my goals for today.
And I appreciate it because my friend Saul Klein introduced me to this book last year called The Hype Machine. And it's all about how social media disrupts our elections, our economy, our health, and how we must adapt. And what they talk a lot about in there is not only misinformation, but disinformation. I'm not going to explain the difference. You
Sure.
Google it, but it talks about that. And in our world, there's a lot of that out there. So I really appreciate you doing the research, because most of these news outlets and everything, they sell fear, they sell doom and gloom, and they really create clickbait headlines just so they can get clicks. And what you're doing is bringing real, logical, factual information that we can use as the professional that we are. So thank you.
Yep. Well, I think that there's two things to realize in that, Johnny. One is that the job of the news is to get you to watch more news. It's not to educate you, and I think we have to just understand that. And depending on where you stand politically and all those different things, their job is to get you hooked in and drawn in. They're a business, right? Like any other business, they want to get you to consume more. The second thing is we are very fortunate today where we have mediums like Zoom. We can go live on Facebook. We can communicate to people and we can get the truth out there. That's the difference, and I think a lot of people realize that, and they're looking for it to us, certainly in the housing market, to bring the facts and the information to them. So there's a silver lining to that scenario that we face, because we have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, we're in a world of truly instant information and all of the information that you want, right?
Yeah.
So you got information. What are we talking about today? You always bring some great stuff.
Yeah, talk about house prices, and I'll hop in here in just a minute. We'll talk about affordability. It's a question. A lot of us are going, okay, prices are rising quickly. I will tell you the affordability question, some information may surprise you. And again, I want to give you this. And my encouragement is always going to be to pull your local market information and add it to it. This is what's happening in the macro US market. And we'll talk about maybe some odds and ends as well today, savings rates and rents and things like that, just to give you perspective on what's happening out across the country relative to real estate. I'd say this too. Johnny, I always enjoy, folks that, we get to interact with and ask questions. So I would say ask questions, put it in the chat there. Johnny and I'll watch that and try to answer those questions as we go along today. But let me start off here, if you don't mind, with appreciation. Just got this in March 2021, year-over-year appreciation. FHFA saying 13.9%. Let's call that 14% appreciation. CoreLogic a little over 11%. S&P, Case-Shiller looking at 13%. So depending on these different, reporting agencies, forecasters, they're going to have a little bit different number based on what they're looking at and some other, pieces of information. But you look at that, we can say 12, 13% of appreciation across the country year over year, still a lot of appreciation. And we ended last year with 10% appreciation. Forecasters, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute, are forecasting appreciation to be very, very strong this year. But no doubt, not telling you anything right now you don't know, but certainly is out there, strong appreciation in many, many markets. This is interesting because I want to show you another piece of information. We're seeing price growth across every region. Why is this important? Well, if you look right now, FHFA first quarter price growth is compared to last year, 12.6%, heavy price growth. And you see, as you look across these regions there, all the green bars that are on the screen, you see somewhere around that, maybe the high of 15, low of, somewhere around 11, but sort of tightly compacted around 12% 12.5% price appreciation. Why is this important? Well, back in 2008, we saw areas of the country, differing. So we saw maybe out west, we saw much stronger appreciation. Maybe in the Midwest, lower appreciation. All two areas weren't the same back then. And today we see this in just about every market. In some of those markets, leading the way, like you take the mountain region at 15.5%. A lot of people, moving out of markets like California into, Arizona, into, areas that, Idaho, areas that they want to be in for a lot of different reasons, driving up those prices. And I think the question that we start to look at is this sustainable? When is this going to cool down? Is it going to heat up? And Bill McBride said this: if inventory increases slowly, house prices will continue to rise rapidly. And if house inventory increases sharply, house price will grow, house price growth will slow. So what we have to begin to look at is, okay, what do we see relative to supply and demand? We're 2.4 months of supply on the market on average across the country. That's up from 2.1 months the prior month. And so a little bit more inventory coming to market. And the question is, locally, where you're at, what do you see happening? Are builders building? Are there, more homes coming on the market? Do you see a shift in that? And certainly, add in the comments there what you're seeing in your market. But strong appreciation is forecasted throughout this year, but will have to do with how much inventory comes on the market. Johnny, we talked last time, I think we were together, maybe the time before, about the economists saying in the second half of the year, inventory will grow. And I think we can expect that as we go forward. But those that forecast home prices have upped their forecast. Again, the average of all these forecasters, 7.1%. When we started looking at this at the first of the year, if you remember, it was around 5% appreciation. What every one of these forecasters has in common is each one of them have raised their forecast this year. Meaning they started out the year and they said, we're going to see this. And they said, okay, we've gone into a couple of months, we're going to see a little bit more. Every one of these forecasters has raised their forecast for 2021. Now, the question that is going to be on every one of their minds is how quickly and by how much does inventory grow going into the second half of the year. But the one thing we can say for sure, Johnny, and I'll turn it back over to you in just a second here, is this is not slowing down those that want to buy. This is a look at the monthly showing time as measured by Showing Time and their index. And if you think about last year, the red bars of March and April, where we saw everybody pull back and not be able to leave their homes literally across the country. And then we packed all of this business into the summer of last year. We're ahead right now going into the spring of where we were last summer, which was a great market. A lot of people looking to buy and looking to go out and make a decision or check things out, look at a home. And even with the strong price growth, not slowing down those that are out looking to buy right now.
No, those out looking to buy, and we were chatting a little bit earlier about the millennials, and they are a large buying force right now.
Sure.
And as they're trying to buy, as Gen X and all these other people are trying to buy, blended families, all these other things, all these other dynamics, there's more buyers in the market. And the inventory, sure, that is definitely going to help ease. But when there's millions of people out there looking to buy, we can put a lot of properties on the market, right? But you're right. I'm seeing people move from California, New York, Chicago area, and they're moving to other areas. And all you got to do is take a look at how money walks in, right? The IRS Great Migration Map, and you'll be able to see, wow, they're all leaving. Where are they going? And how do you capitalize on that, right? As an agent, how do you capitalize on all these people moving to your area? And this is why I think it's important what the information that you bring and the data that you bring forth. You're an agent. You should know what's going on in your market. How can you predict 2, 3, 4 years down the road? Does that make sense? Doing some land investing, maybe that's 30 minutes extra than what people are willing to drive now. Understand what the trends are, because I don't think the trends will just go away. And when we're saying 14% appreciation or roughly thereabouts, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's
Well, I want to
insane.
go back to what you said. Great site that you mentioned. I don't know if people picked up on that. How Money Walks
Mhm.
is a site that you can go to. I think it's an IRS or I don't know who controls that, Johnny. Who publishes that site? How Money Walks. Do you know
I
that?
don't even know.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No.
You Google How Money Walks. It's a site that you can go and see in
Oh,
your area where are people moving to.
yeah, I know
So,
that by county, but I don't
yeah,
know
yeah,
who
yeah.
runs it. I don't know who runs it.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
I use that all the time.
so to go back to your question, building relationships in other areas.
Mhm.
I mean, take LabCoat, for example, greatest collection of agents across the country. It's building relationships. Folks that are on this call, where are you at? And, do you have somebody you can refer people to as they're looking out, and vice versa, people that are looking to move into your area. But I think no doubt these trends of high appreciation right now are with us. I don't think there's any expert right now saying I think this is sustainable long term, but I also think that they believe we're going to see heavy appreciation this year. I mentioned every one of those forecasters has upped their appreciation, their forecast. Now the question is, are they going to continue to do that? I mean, 7% appreciation. We're not too far from 10% appreciation. That would give us 2 years in a row of 10% appreciation. And
Yeah.
people saying, okay, what's next year going to look like? We've talked about the lack of builds that have happened in this country, and literally we just don't have the number of homes on the market for those that want to buy them. And I think it's going to lead to a bigger question. I was on a conversation yesterday just talking about how do we solve that for those that want to buy. And it's typically on the lower end that people can't find a home. They're getting outpriced. You see the
Yeah.
memes of the VA buyer getting taken out by the cash buyer, and certainly the reality in the world. But that is an issue that's going to have to be solved.
It is. The lack of housing. I mean, it's trickle down, trickle up, right? So it all starts down here, and they buy and they upgrade, and then upgrade and upgrade. And what I'm seeing, I would just call it. It's almost like we're seeing inflation with inside of the housing market within its own. And we're seeing some inflation, I think, out there. Things are costing a little bit more. Maybe it's because the dollar's gone down. Maybe it's because gas has gone up. I don't know, but things cost a little bit more today than they
Sure.
did yesterday. Housing is one of those things. How long can we go on? Is there any talk about changing the affordability index or the DTI ratios or anything else like that? What's going on in that realm?
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I think the numbers are going to surprise you. I did pull the most recently. When I look at that in Keeping Current Matters, our research team uses the NARS Housing Affordability Index.
Mhm.
So this conversation typically is had. There are two things you want to look at, and not. And I want to be careful that we don't confuse the two, because they're two different issues. One is affordable housing, and that typically refers to homes on the lower end of a market that can be purchased affordably. And I think that is an issue today. That's a challenge for people to be able to. We have more, people that want to do that than we literally have homes to do that. The other is housing affordability, which is what will the dollar buy? And you mentioned, the rising cost of lumber, the rising cost of gas, all those things. We always say the builder or whoever that is, those savings are going to be passed on to the consumer. If it's a
Mhm.
tariff, whatever it is, it's just going to cost more. So let's take a look at that, and I think it's going to surprise you. Mark Fleming came out and said this. He's the chief economist at First American. Housing affordability on a year-over-year basis declined in March for the first time since January 2019. Now, I want to preface that. So it's rising. It declined. It didn't fall off the map or anything, ending a more than 2-year streak of rising affordability. So affordability is based on a couple of things. It's based on wages, it's based on home prices, and it's based on interest rates. Wages are going up. Wages, that's a good thing. Home prices are going up. That's a challenge. And interest rates are still low. Okay, so those are
Mhm.
the things that they deal with in looking at affordability. Goes on to say house buying power is likely to remain robust in the months to come, but affordability trends will likely hinge on changes in nominal house price appreciation. So what's he saying there? Essentially kind of giving this nod that, okay, affordability has been on this upward trend and a good thing. It's starting to decline. It's starting to take its toll on rising interest rates, rising prices, but wages are going up. Now the next day he almost walked back this comment, and I want to give that to you. He said this. He said, looking back at the bubble years, house prices exceeded house buying power in 2006 nationally. But today, house buying power is nearly twice as high as the median sales price nationally. The dollar can buy more. Many find it hard to believe, but housing is actually undervalued in most markets, and the gap between house buying power and the sales prices indicates there's room for further house price growth in the months to come. That's not something a lot of people are talking about, Johnny, is that house prices could go higher. Now, I want to give you this information. Maybe you've got somebody that you're working with that's looking, and maybe they're getting tired of missing deals, or getting tired of everything that's happening out there and feeling like maybe they can't buy, to show them where affordability is at. I mentioned the NARS Housing Affordability Index. If you've seen me present this, you've seen it from KCM, the higher this index, the more affordable a home is. And, as you look at this, you see the orange bars in the middle there, the years that, distressed properties dominated the market, and where we stand today in the blue bar is in a very, very good affordability range. This goes all the way back to 1990, what you're looking at right now, and homes being more affordable since, going back to 2013. Again, a lot of inventory on the market back in 2013, clearing out from, the housing crisis. So I think as we have this conversation, we have to acknowledge prices are going up, but also wages are going up and interest rates are low, still keeping that affordability in a very, very good range. If we look at the percent of income needed to purchase a median price home, historically, going back to 85, that's been about 21%. We jumped up in 2006 to 25%. We sit at 14.4% today. Very, very good number for consumers that are looking to buy. So my message would be, use this information, to encourage those that you're working with to stay in the fight to find a home if they're having a challenge there. Mike Laughlin said this, because the other option is renting, right? Contrary to popular belief, owning one's home is frequently more affordable than renting. It's cheaper to buy a home than it is to rent in 2 out of 3 of American counties right now. And somebody's thinking, well, we'll just rent, we won't buy. Here's what happens if you look at the rising rent over the last, going all the way back to the 90s. The median asking price for rent continues to go up.
Skyrocketing.
And it's unreal. And what renters don't benefit from are the things that homeowners do, whether it be a tax deduction, whether it be the relief of a refinance and lower rates, whether it be the relief of paying off a home down the road. So strong information there relative to affordability that we want to get out there.
That is some interesting stuff. 14.4 is the shocker to me.
Yeah.
That, and you're right, with the rates being so low, I think is a driving factor, because the prices are up here, but the cost to borrow your money is next to nothing.
There's 2 factors there, John. So there's 3 things that go into it. And what we see, and what the big piece that draws our attention is rising home prices. No doubt they're going up. It's costing more to go out and buy a home. We'll call it housing inflation. But what we miss in that is the low interest rates. We sit at 3% as the average 30-year fixed right now, as measured by Freddie Mac, and rising wages. That's the part that offsets that, and it's offsetting it enough to give us great affordability. Now, what is the forecast? Going back to Mark Fleming's quote, as prices continue to rise, as rates go up, that will be, challenged. But, even if we take the high forecast for rates this year at 3 3/4, and I think that is the high, I don't know that that's going to cause folks not to still feel really, really, really good about long-term financing. You lock in a rate at 3 3/4, that's still really good.
It's still ridiculous. Yeah. I think my first mortgage was 8.75 or 9.75 or something like that. So to see those rates, it's like, wow, that's great. I remember my mother telling me they had, I think, 13.75 or something. I'm like, wow. Well, I mean, they paid
Certainly back in the
50,000 for the
70s, yeah.
house.
Saw some really, really high rates. I think the other thing too to keep in mind was affordability. And I don't know, we talked a little bit about this last time. The interesting thing that's going to start happening across the country, and I want to give people something to be on the lookout for, and be the knowledge broker. What you're going to start seeing as we go throughout the year, it's going to be sort of a I'm going to call it a scare tactic and a headline that we need to respond to, is
Mm,
the average mortgage payment is going to see a big jump in 2021. So expect to see those headlines.
mm.
And it's going to be true. People are buying. People are out there doing it. So we're going to see a jump in mortgage payments across the country. The other thing is, I do believe as we turn to the second half of the year, that buying an existing home is going to become more attractive than new construction.
Yeah.
You know, for many, many years in this country, you know, when you weighed existing versus new construction, cost wise, they were kind of the same. Why would I go buy this existing home when I could go buy new construction over here?
Mhm.
Well, with rising cost, I think it's going to position the existing home very, very well for consumers as they go out to buy. And I think there will still be people that say, you know, we want a new build and we're willing to pay that premium. And this is important to us. And we talked a lot about coming out of the pandemic, the importance of what we want in a house grew over the last year. So it's not a signal that there's an issue there, but I think that's going to be the dynamic that plays out between those two, you know, scenarios.
That's crazy. So, man, that is great stuff. There's some scary stuff, I guess, too, if you wanted to look, because there's no relief in sight for the inventory that's out there or these other things. But the existing home sales, yeah, they have come. It's funny because what's driving that new construction is the lumber, right? That's where
Yeah.
these premiums are coming from. And I'm seeing people complain now that have been on the contract for a year or two to me, saying all of a sudden my house, they're telling me $30,000 more. I said, yeah, these are the clauses that are in the new construction contract, that if lumber prices go up or any other material prices go up, that gets passed on to you. This is the quote of today's price,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
right.
So it's interesting to see the new construction world happening like that.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about that, one, a lot of builders are saying, hey, we're not even going to quote a price until we get to a point where we feel confident in doing that. So
Yeah,
that's a reality of the market. Some builders have said we're not going to build anything right now or slow down production.
yeah,
Now, I do think, and economists are saying this is a short-term issue. This is an issue we will work through when we get through the supply and demand imbalance. So we have to keep that in mind. And I think that's encouraging news. Now, the short term is a relative statement. You know, is that three
sure.
months? Is it 6 months? Is it 8 months? But I believe it will be worked through.
So it's interesting. We live in this world now that every day, and I had said this on a podcast earlier, that if you go back to 2001, compare it to now, it's 20 years. And I mean, we're just getting over Y2K then, right?
Yeah,
Everybody, the world, the Death Star of Y2K was coming, and
I
the
remember.
world was going to come to a screeching halt. I was a network engineer. I had a lot of fun that year. Well, in 1999 and 2000. But now all of a sudden, if you look at where we were then, everybody had to go to work. We didn't have access to apps on our phone. The
Yeah,
iPhone didn't even exist. Now all of a sudden we live in a world where you can dump $1,000 based upon a hunch into a coin or an altcoin or a token. You can dump $1,000 into a stock on a stock tip. Now all of a sudden, right, the Reddit stock monsters, the apes, if you would, you can dump $1,000 in there, and all of a sudden, oh, look at that, I just made my mortgage payment overnight, right?
yeah.
Because I made enough from that. I made my money. I made 300, 400, had a 32% increase. We live in that world, and that's a real world.
Mhm.
So I think that's affording some people the luxury to move to those mountainous areas, or Idaho. Idaho is rather mountainous, if I remember when I was there. But it's allowing them to move to these other areas. A, it's less expensive, and B, I can make money sitting on my couch.
Yeah,
We live in a weird world.
I think there's that factor, and I think people too, just psychologically, after we came out of the pandemic, and I'm not saying we're through all that, but as we're going into this year, have kind of said, I'm going to do that. I was waiting on doing that, but life's too short. There's too many things that are important to me and,
Yeah.
and want to do that. And so I think we will see those trends. Is it going to dramatically change things?
I
No,
don't
but
think
there'll
so.
be trends that continue on.
Yeah, where
Uh,
you live is always going to be popular and powerful. North Carolina, Raleigh, the Triangle. I mean, Amazon's going down there. A bunch of other people are going down there, right? South Carolina and Charleston, they got the Boeing plants and stuff like that.
yeah,
So there's going to be that's not going to change.
right.
Yeah.
And that's where I think, to your point, Johnny, everybody on the call, use that to be the knowledge broker, right? Hey, here's what's happening in Raleigh, or where you gave the Raleigh example, wherever you're at, here's the employers that are coming in, here are the dynamics in our market. that cause me to have this opinion. We always want to have a market, based opinion based on
Mhm.
facts.
Yeah.
This is why I believe this versus, this is what, but I think people said last year, are the cities dead? It's clear right now in real estate, cities aren't dead. There are a lot of
Mhm.
people that are like, hey, people moved out. We're going to move in. Now we can go, find what we want. And that's a good thing. More
Yeah.
inventory. Typically, one of the leading areas of inventory is New York State right now.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing for people that want to buy. I also want to comment on Peggy asked a question here. And again, if you have a question, ask those in here. If there's something that you want Johnny and I to maybe cover in a coming week, put that in there. Let's talk about that. But Peggy, you asked, can you comment on the Canadian housing market or housing prices? We deal in macro US data. I wish I could. I don't have the Canadian information. I don't have a resource for you. I get asked a lot of times, is there somebody that does this for the Canadian market? And if there is, I don't know it, but sorry for that.
Here's my official comment. It's high, eh? And Troy mentioned here on Facebook in the LabCoats group, Travis H. Brown, author, How Many Walks, also on the web. So that'd be a great book. And I think that's something that we in our industry don't pay enough attention to. They don't teach it in school near enough, is economics. And we need to learn exactly how the book says, how money walks, right? How money walks, how money works.
Yeah.
Those are two very important things to understand the monetary system, because we're just blind. We get our Amex and then the bill's paid automatically and we just keep zeep. But to understand the repercussions of, on, like you said, on the macro level, I think it's important.
Yeah. Let me give you a couple odds and ends, Johnny, of what we talked about. I think these are interesting. I want to run through these and give them to folks. It kind of is about the conversation we had. Just to give you a perspective, what's fueling this market? Well, during COVID, the U.S. personal savings rate soared. Typically, pre-pandemic, you saw an average about 7%, people saving about 7%. Well, in April of last year, that shot up to 33%. Big reason for that is maybe not going to do the things they wanted to do, not going out, a lot of logical reasons. It's hung on. And even in March of this year, people saving a lot of money right now. And something important to remember as they hold on to that money, it's fueling them to be able to, save for a down payment, save for what they want to do. But a noticeable difference in the savings rate coming through the pandemic. The other thing, and I want to give you this, I think most folks know this maybe, but the second home market surged in 2020. Johnny, you talked about Idaho and going up there or going different places. We saw a little bit of a surge in primary home purchases, but in second home purchases, actually in 2020, that market was forecasted to constrict slightly, and it grew by 27%. A lot of people said for, a need, low interest rates, whatever the case may be, we're going to go out, we're going to purchase a second home. And you see the pullback in investment properties. I don't think there were a lot of people looking to buy for, as an investor last year. So interesting dynamics in what, people's behavior relative to home buying was last year. And a lot of that information coming out now, of course, as we go throughout the year, more and more information will be available to us about how people reacted during the pandemic. The Urban Institute released a very, very good study called "Homeownership is Affordable Housing" in the past couple of weeks, and this is an interesting piece of information that we pulled out of it. The share of income spent by housing by income, and this is breaking down by income. What percentage is spent by a renter versus a homeowner? And you can see in every category, homeowners spend less on their housing expense than renters do. And again, there's the issue of folks being able to buy, and we want to solve that issue. We certainly want to see more people be able to buy homes, and that is a challenge right now. And I'll kind of wrap with this. He said this in the report. We need to stop seeing housing as this reward for financial success and instead see it as a critical tool that can facilitate financial success.
Yes.
Affordable homeownership is not the capstone of economic well-being. It is the cornerstone. And I think, Johnny, all of us got into this business to help people buy homes. It's the American dream. And, the more that we can do as an industry to help people do that, help bring inventory back to the lower end, all the things that need to happen. And some of that, is going to be bigger issues that have to be solved. But I thought that was a really good quote to position our job and what it means.
Mm-hmm. That's great stuff. And that is a fantastic quote. And I think that right there needs to be not the quote, but the whole saying is really, it is a cornerstone of building some level of financial success and security.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
It is the cornerstone of security. You pay, you stay, you don't, you won't. Right. That's with a mortgage. That's what I would say at closing. You pay, you stay, you don't, you won't. And with rentals, you always have that unknown up in the air. Right. Market's great. Is my landlord going to sell?
Yeah. Right.
And then what?
Right.
Where do you go? Right. So definitely a lot of good stuff as always. David, do you have anything else that up your sleeve?
That's all. Nothing else up my sleeve. That's all I have.
All right. Well, David, you know what? If you're ugly or overweight, David can't help you with that. Neither can I. Those are your problems and deal with them. There's plenty of things. Get some Gnome, get some Daily Harvest and start drinking shakes like I do. But what David can help you do is be smarter. And he can do that by giving you a free subscription for 14 days to Keeping Current Matters. How do they get that?
Just go to trykcm.com. So trykcm.com. You can go check it out and see if it's right for you. And here's what I always say. We do it for $29 a month. And if you find somebody else that'll do it cheaper, let us know, because we might start using their information. And, I wouldn't say, anything other than you have to have great data in this market to be able to educate people. So get it somewhere.
There's more real estate agents getting into the game right now because it's easy money and all this other stuff, or big paychecks, which we all know that it's hard work and it doesn't work that easy.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people getting in, and there's a lot of people, I don't, wherever you are, 3,500, 7,500, 15,000 agents in your MLS inside of your association. What makes you different? And that's what I'm always trying to train on. What makes you different? What makes you stand out? By listen, video is the most important thing you can be doing on social media, but I would say the majority of people are doing it wrong with data that nobody actually cares about. But if you can come on and start to talk about this, I live in a very affluent town. There's a lot of very well-educated people here. They work at Fidelity right up the road. They start seeing you have a little sense of knowledge. They're going to want to work with you. Not doing TikTok, right? I mean, maybe that works for you, but go to KCM. What is it? TryKCM.com.
TryKCM.com. Yeah.
That's it. All right, man. Thank you, David, for being here. Everybody, get your knowledge on. Be smart with KCM. Peace out.
Bye.